Okay, so assignment 3 in the research methods unit. There are actually 3 videos associated with this assignment, so this is the first of those. The general assessment criteria for assignment 3 looks at data collection techniques, but actually that's a very vast area, and it's really worth taking our time doing this properly, because it will prepare you for the research project when you have to collect data, and will prepare you for university if you go on to study. So this particular video, it looks at types and classifications of data. And there's the image you'll see on the front cover of the assignment brief. So the unit specification for this assignment hits these areas. Types of data, research designs and classifications of data, and that will all make sense to you once we've gone through the assignment. There's the P3 assessment criteria that you will work towards for this assignment. And here's the scenario. So you're working as a trainee sports scientist for the British Gymnastics Regional Office. You've been asked to prepare and carry out several pieces of research on young female gymnasts, but you need to consider the methods of data collection. So task 1. You will, just so you know, you'll be assessed by making a video screencast like this thing that I am providing you, and we'll show you how to do that, but it will essentially require you to include those 4 yellow bits of information, the bits that I will go through in this video. And of course your examples should be linked to the scenario for this assignment. So the first sort of component of this assignment looks at the sort of broad research designs that you might do if you were carrying out research. Top to bottom then, so a longitudinal study, really as it sort of implies, is a study or a piece of research that would go over many years, very long and elongated, and it would look for change over time. A case study, you might case study a particular group of athletes or an individual athlete, and you get really sort of in-depth information for them, but you'd be looking to show development through time. So this again could be a longer study, but it's quite specific to an individual or a specific group. Cross-sectional studies, these, if you were, for example, looking at a certain population, so if we're looking at football participation, or those people who participate in football. Now that's a very broad population or category of people, so you would have to take a sample from all the different sorts of players of football, a cross-section. So you might take males, females, younger, older, those that are playing for social, recreational reasons, and those that are more at the elite end. But you would be basically taking a cross-sectional sample. Comparative studies, pretty much as they say, you compare 2 or more things. You might, compare, let's say, the provision of PE in the UK to the provision of PE in France or Australia. That would be comparison. But the one in yellow here at the bottom is the one that we will focus on, this experimental research design, where essentially you in a very controlled way, in a very systematic way, you try to control all other variables apart from the one you're going to manipulate, because you want to see the effect of that on another variable, and so you don't want other things interfering with this, and we'll look at that a little bit more closely in later assignments. So this is the design within the experiment that you might do, and it's probable that this is the experimental research design that you will use, the repeated measures, because quite often your group are the participants or subjects for each other's experiments, so you'll all do the activities for each other. And what often happens is you'll have the same group, i.e. the Year 2 Sports Science group, will do one activity, and then in slightly different conditions we'll do a second activity. So for example, if we were looking at free throws in basketball and looking at the presence of an audience, your group would do the free throws without an audience, they'd do the free throws with an audience, and then you compare those results using the same participants. So repeated measures is the same participants. Independent groups is essentially using different participants. So It could be that we used your sports science group and the Basvik basketball team. So that has certain issues because there's quite sort of different characteristics that those participants have. Or we've kind of got a compromise option, matched pairs, which although still uses two different sets of people to do the two different conditions, one might do the with audience, one might do the without audience, you try as best as possible to match those people in the groups. So if there's a person with certain characteristics, certain height, certain weight, certain playing experience, in the other group you hopefully find and match a person with those same characteristics. So you're trying to almost make them the same in each group. So probably in priority, this would be the best, this is the next, and this is the least valuable in this situation. And then you will do some primary and secondary research. So this is where you find your information or your evidence. Primary research is what you will do for your research project. You will essentially carry out a piece of research yourself, you'll collect data, and that is primary research. It's yours, first hand. Secondary research, you'll also do this in your research project and probably have done it for all of your assignments, because this involves looking at other people's research, looking at other people's work and taking what's appropriate and relevant from it. So primary research can be really valuable because you can, you have direct control over what you're looking for and how you manipulate the experiment to get what you want from it. But there's a risk that you might be biased, you might unconsciously or consciously manipulate the results to get what you want. It could be expensive, it could be time consuming, and you could make mistakes. But similarly, there are pros and cons with secondary research. A pro might be it's very easy to access. Google Scholar, PubMed all have lots and lots of abstracts and articles and pieces of research for you to look, so it's quite cheap and it can be really insightful. You can see what other people did and how they did it and what results they got. But there's obviously a varying degree of quality and credibility that comes from other people's research. You don't know, how well it was done, so it's just something to bear in mind. So the main bit of this then, the classifications of data. There are 4, as you can see, so nominal, ordinal, discrete, continuous, and I'll go through those just now. So discrete data is when there is separate, isolated or opposite values that you use or that you have. And so very simple examples of discrete data would be a closed question, do you smoke, yes or no? There's really only 2 options, this or that. Are you left or right-handed, this or that? Very isolated answers. Are you male or female, this or that? So our second type of data, nominal data, there's a little bit of clue in the name of this type of data. Nom is French for name, and this basically involves data that has named categories. And you basically have categories, you have a group of people, and they will be tallied or counted up into which category they fit into. So examples might be, in your group, in your class, we've got 3 categories: basketball, netball, football. Count up how many people fit into the basketball playing category, or the netball playing category, or the football playing category. So it's essentially a frequency data, how many people or how many things. So ordinal data. Now this you've probably come across without necessarily recognising it as being ordinal data. Those of you that follow football will all probably have seen a league table and will know that teams are ordered in rank order, top to bottom being the highest scoring or those with the most points, second, third, fourth, fifth, down to the bottom. So they are ordered in rank order, so the clue perhaps comes again with the name, rank order and ordinal data. So we can talk about this perhaps in height order, fastest to slowest, heaviest to lightest. What this doesn't tell you is what the difference is between the first and second height. So the tallest person might be 6 foot, but we don't know if the second person, just in their order, is 4'7" or 5'8". So it's got some value, but is quite limiting in terms of being quite precise and giving you that kind of detail. Finally then, this continuous data, which again might be more likely the sort of data that you'll be using in your projects. So continuous data is numerical data, which can typically have decimal places, and there are actually two types of continuous data. We will probably talk about it just as continuous data, but just so you know, there are two types, interval and ratio. Now, both of these types of continuous data have equal intervals between them. So temperature goes up by degrees or point something of a degree. There's an equal space between each little step up in temperature or step down in temperature. So the question is, what's the difference between interval and ratio data? And if I put these examples up here, it'll be pretty evident, hopefully. Interval data can have minus values, so you can get a temperature of -12, -13, whereas ratio data has an absolute zero, so heart rates, time, speed, all of those are ratio data, and they're probably the sort of data you're going to use. So I thought it's really quickly show, this is the template that I've created for you as a starting point for your screencast. So you'll obviously put your name on the front, you'll put prompts or images to allow you to verbally explain the research designs, the different kind, I think there were 5 that I went through. Similarly with the experimental research designs and the research sources, so primary and secondary research sources, and lastly classifications of data. So here, in fact this slide, you need to be able to explain and complete to show that you know firstly what the different types of classifications of data are. So I need a little description in there, a definition in there maybe, and then you've got to show off that you totally know it by applying those classifications of data to the sample data in this table, which could have come from some gymnasts. So for each of them, so the sprint, the age, the standing broad jump, the height, you need to say what type of data it is, so you type that in here, and you need to explain why it is, so how it fits that classification. So smoking is what kind of data and why you think it is. Sit and reach is what kind of data and why you think it is. So this should hopefully really show that you understand it. So task 1, start creating a video screencast so you can prepare the slides using the template, making sure you include these 4 elements of information, and make sure you give examples to explain these through the scenario about the British gymnast or the female British gymnast. And remember that the rest of the assignment will be explained through 2 other videos to follow.